Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, in which people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if you are available during the weekdays from 11 to noon Central Time, you can join us live. You can go to zoom.us and then open a browser window and type in the meeting code 853-2357-4173, or you can call one of the many numbers they make available. And once you're on the line with them, enter the same meeting ID, 853-2357-4173. And then you'll be available to either show us your smiling face or have an open conversation or just listen in. If you call in on your phone, it's the toggle for the mute button is *6. So you when you come in, you'll be automatically muted. If you have something to say, please just hit *6 and speak up. Or if you're in the Zoom app, feel free to either unmute yourself and speak up or put a hand up, which is one of the options on the switchboard you'll have there in front of you if you're on Zoom. So how can we support you today? What's on your mind? How did it land yesterday as we were reading from Alan Watts and having a discussion with Susan Bingham? I have continued to work on booking people for the On Your Mind podcast, and I'm having an intro call tomorrow right after the internet show with a gentleman named Roman, who is working on a book and a documentary about attention deficit disorder, and the history behind it, and some of what he says reminds me of the Guy Finley line where Guy Finley says, the feel is real, but the why is a lie. So the actuality of the way people's brains work differently than others is real, and yet what they're telling us through most of our psychiatric and psychological resources, it doesn't hold up. And it isn't conducive to actual healing. It's only conducive to continued treatment over and over and over again. And if all you're ever doing is treating the symptoms, you may never get to the healing part. The healing part needs us to look at a system, needs us to look at how things actually work at the most fundamental practical level we can discern, and then keep our energy focused there to stay focused on things we actually have control over to try and change things for the better, and or to dismantle any negative reactions or emotional responses we have when what we had wanted for life, for our days, activities, for a course of our life or whatever, doesn't match what life has in store. And whenever that happens, our best option is to relax and align with what's happening in life and work with it from that perspective rather than resisting it and pulling ourselves out of the present moment awareness, the ability to work with life as it unfolds, because I can't work with something that I'm fighting against. So, as we were yesterday, we kind of took a detour from the Guy Finley book I've been reading from. It's a pre-publication advanced copy of the book titled One Love, One Life, One Journey, written by Guy Finley and Dr. Ellen Dickstein. And with a quick reminder that even if I seem to be in the middle of reading something, we encourage people to raise a hand or speak up. And the section we left off in here in this book is titled Thrive in Chaos. Be in the world, not of it. And Guy Finley writes, there was once a hit Broadway show with a title many people could relate to. The show was titled, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. When life seems overwhelming, that's exactly what we want to do, isn't it? We want to just get away from everything that frustrates us, frightens us, makes us feel powerless. However, that wish is the result of so much misunderstanding. It's based on the belief that we can escape this world and reach a place or a time with no problems. However, the physical world we live in is a fact that we simply can't change or escape. And even more important, the world around us and the people in it are not the problem. The problem is that we ourselves are the world we live in, which means all our issues and troubles come with us wherever we go. It is our beliefs, our desires, our expectations, and demands that form our relationship with the world outside of us and determine how we will experience it. Nevertheless, unless through greater understanding all of that changes inside us, then nothing will change for us, no matter what else we do or where we go. Dr. Michael Ryce has talked about this for years. How many of us have practiced the geographic cure? We just have to get away from these people, this horrible situation, this bad job, this horrible relationship, and we fly to the other part of the country, or we fly to another country, another continent, and we land, and the person who greets us at that new location finishes the sentence that the person who said goodbye to us had started. The essence is the geographic key doesn't work, or cure doesn't work. We take ourselves and all of our, as he's talking about here, our interpretations, our problems, our beliefs. We take it all with us, our expectations, our desires, our demands. We take that with us wherever we go. Unless we turn inside and start working with that, we'll only continue to replicate or duplicate what we've had in the past in the present moment. So then he writes, the bright side to all of this is that the outer world we live in is meant to be our ally. This is because everything we undergo in it can be used to discover and transcend the self within me that keeps creating the life we don't want. We can use the world to learn what we need to see about ourselves. Then we can live consciously in this world, but not be of it. This is kind of like what I was reading yesterday when Alan Watts is talking about, here are 7 things that we gradually let go of as we awaken spiritually. We gradually awaken and these things fall away. What falls away? Our beliefs, our frustrations, our demands, our expectations, and we start to align ourselves with the creative force that's giving rise to the life we're experiencing. And if I'm in the middle of it and I choose to just be with it rather than step back from it, isolate from it, resist it, label it, judge it, if I stay in it and breathe and soften and ask to be taught by the moment, my life experience is transformed. It has been for a lot of years now. So as we keep doing this, life shows us what we're carrying around with us that keeps us from knowing and loving life more fully. And then we can live consciously in the world. And if we're living consciously in the world, we're not going to be screaming, stop the world, I want to get off. He writes, the great sages throughout time have told us that we can learn to live in the world without being ruled by it. We can develop a new relationship with the world that keeps us inwardly free. Here's a sampling of this wisdom over the ages. He quotes Marcus Aurelius, quote, it is in your power to be free from all compulsions and to remain in the greatest tranquility of mind, even if all the world cries out against you as much as it chooses. And then Yuan Wu is quoted as saying, if you don't understand, let's start again. If you understand, you can make use of it on the road, like a dragon reaching for water, like a tiger in the mountains. If you don't understand, then the worldly truth will prevail, and you will be like a ram caught in a fence, like a fool watching over a stump waiting for a rabbit. Ralph Waldo Emerson is quoted as saying, it is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It's easy in solitude to live after your own. However, the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. And then E.H. Chapin, quote, a true man never frets about his place in the world, but just slides into it by the gravitation of his nature and swings there as easily as a star. Close quotes. Guy Finley says, so given these priceless ideas above, it would seem natural to ask, but how am I supposed to achieve this kind of inner balance when there's so many troubling events, seemingly every day, that come knocking at my door? Close quotes. Guy says, one of the greatest gifts that man or woman can be given in this world, and only if they ask properly, But one of the greatest gifts a man or a woman can be given in this world is to understand that everything that happens to them, no matter what, is for their greater good. It makes no difference what it is. Call it the worst thing in the world. And most of us have had the experience of recognizing that there were times when, if I could have thrown away that moment, full of fear, anger, resentment, we would have thrown it away. But then, by a kind of grace, although unable to see it at first, to see the higher lesson in it, because of this illusion of time, eventually our eyes begin to open and we see the unthinkable. The very moment we feared and tried to avoid turns out to be an invitation to realize a fearless life. Then we can meet unwanted moments with a new understanding of why they've come and how we might offer to be used to serve the divine purpose of the moment, rather than being like an angry toddler stomping his or her feet in anger, demanding that life change to what we think it should be. There is nothing that life can deliver to our door that is not effortlessly handled in the same moment that we remember this truth. Nothing has a right to enter into and remain in our heart or our mind without our consent. Nothing has the right to enter or remain in our heart or our mind unless we consent to it. This is that idea that you may not have been taught this, but in this teaching and a lot of other solid teachings, they want you to understand some version of the following. The first point is you have the infinite capacity to choose the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment. The second point is it is the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment that actually creates your experience of life in that moment. So if you do not like your experience of life in the moment, take a breath, turn the focus inside, and figure out by gently asking, not figure it out, gently ask how you're generating the upset that you say you don't want. And put yourself in that passive, childlike, innocent, curious, wondering space rather than the bloodhound on the trail sniffing out all the clues. I'm going to sort it out with my conscious logical mind. That never works. The conscious logical mind, after a fashion, when it has, if and when it finally gets access to all of the emotional energies and the connections that have been made at the unconscious and emotional level, it can see something that it says, oh, that makes sense. And yet it isn't a logical kind of a sense. It's not going to be figured out at the conscious logical level because the answer doesn't reside at that level. The next section of the reading is titled, Rise Above Whatever is Holding You Down. And Guy Finley writes, thinking. It's what we do day in and day out. We think about the past. We think about the future. We think about our problems and how to solve them. Thinking, thought, thunk. But for all that thinking, have we ever come to the resolution that we seek? Have we ever fixed a heartache or a past mistake with thought? Or eased our concern over the future? Or have we found any kind of a lasting solution for a problem? Other than the practical thought needed to do our jobs, find a way home, bake a loaf of bread, has anything in this kind of thinking that we've done for decades, most of us, with inner and outer commenting. Has it ever brought us anything like peace and contentment? The great sages didn't believe it did. They urged us to get beyond the thinking nature and enter into a realm above it, a realm of understanding without words, a realm connected to higher wisdom. We're so used to swimming in our own thinking, we can't imagine that there could be understanding and wisdom without it. And yet, through the centuries, we've been told that the true answers we seek can only be found in that higher realm. Here's a quote from Simeon the Younger. The more a man enters the light of understanding, the more aware he is of his own ignorance. And when the light reveals itself fully and unites with him and draws him into itself so that he finds himself alone in a sea of light, then he is emptied of all knowledge and immersed in absolute unknowing. That's from Simeon the Younger. Now this, to my eye and ear, echoes exactly what we are led into in the way of mastery, where it talks about our divine ignorance, where it talks about exercises we can do to wake up to how little we truly know and how much we take for granted and how much we just pretend to know. The next quote is Dr. Maurice Nicoll, 1884 to 1953. It's quoted as saying, "Nor do we think that many of our insoluble difficulties, perplexities, and unanswered questions necessarily exist because of the kind of consciousness that we naturally possess." Right? We don't think that that's the case, and that a new degree of consciousness would enter and either cause our awareness of them to disappear or bring them about in an entirely new relation to them. So we don't think that most of our intense difficulties, they seem to be insolvable, and the perplexities and unanswered questions, we don't think that they exist mostly because of our thinking about them. And yet that's the essence of the teaching from Krishnamurti and David Bohm, and Michael Ryce has tapped into it and put it on the Reality Management Worksheet under the title of Sustained Incoherence, right? Doing something that doesn't work and then just continually repeating it in an effort to keep it going so it might one day work. If it didn't work the first 18 times, maybe it'll work the 19th. Colleen, did you have a question, comment?
I just was recognizing myself in a lot of what I was hearing. Just even the last time we spoke, I remember doing a mind shifter, and when I listened back to it, I could hear myself sort of deflecting away from, where I probably needed to go. And it was funny because we ended it and I did the mind shifter, and that's exactly where it brought me to the child and asking the child. And since then I've been doing a lot of processing and forgiveness and opened up some power person stuff with my dad that I didn't even think about because the thing with my mom was so big, and I've been working on that for the past few years, and it's kind of great now. Our relationship is it's greatly improved. So I didn't realize what I had under my dad. And anyway, the point was I do a lot of solving and thinking and writing a story as to why, and it's amazing to me that when I will put pen to paper and do a mind shifter, or there's a painting process I do as well to try to bypass the mind and get to that deeper place. I don't know. I liked what you said about how it doesn't quite make sense when it makes sense to you. Like I realize something, and then if I try to explain it, it becomes a little bit difficult. You know what I mean? Without a ton of context. But it's not for anybody else, it's for me. So,
Exactly, right? If it can nudge
it,
you into seeing yourself differently, then it's served its purpose.
and yes, and yeah, yeah. So that's about, I mean, I'm still working on it, and I guess I will be for good, but I feel like I'm in a much better place today than I was last time we spoke, and that's something. So,
Excellent,
yeah,
excellent. Yeah,
yeah.
well, this whole thing in this section, he's about the quote Krishnamurti, who was, he lived from 1895 to 1986, and he was one of the first real deep dives that I took into one person's work from a philosophical or spiritual perspective. And the essence of it is, if we can learn to look at what is unfolding in our lives as though it will help us learn about ourselves rather than thinking we're learning about the outside world, if we can just realize that whatever unfolds and our reaction to it is there, if for no other purpose than to help me see more of what I brought with me into this moment that I wasn't aware of. I walk in fairly calm. I choose an interpretation for what's happening in the room, and the next thing you know, I'm generating anger or fear or sadness or guilt or hurt or confusion. But that's what I brought with me into the moment. And the more I can understand that this flow of life events can't be wrong unless there's a human being around to judge it as right or
Mhm.
wrong, good or bad, then I can be in it and just constantly be asking to be taught by it, asking what's mine to do to be a blessing to myself and others here. And I can start to be in this flow of energy exchange with the flow of life itself. And I will learn more about my true nature. And I will be amazed at what Jung would call the synchronicities, the way things come together, the way what looked like a tragedy leads to some of the best things in my life in the next phase, right? In the next kingdom that I graduate into, so to speak.
Yeah, I did observe myself quite a bit, when I started observing myself categorizing things, you know what I mean? Like as you just surveying the environment, even something beautiful, like, you're looking outside and trees and it's kind of like, oh, that's a this kind. Oh, that's a that. Oh, that's a, let me put this in this box. Let me do, and all that just I noticed when I could catch myself and then just take a breath and go, you know what? I don't need to know what I'm not teaching a class on these trees. There's no purpose for me to have this, you know, experience in this moment. I could just have the experience of taking in what I'm looking at. And, it's really great if I can do it with people. It's not always easy, but, just to,
And yet you're right
yeah,
on it, right? That's the kind of goal. If if I recognize that everything is connected in that way, and that everything only has the impact it does on me because of what I choose as a meaning for it, and what I make it mean. Is like what the Course in Miracles says, I give this moment all the meaning it has in my life.
right.
Always. I'm always creating whatever meaning I experience. Now, in the beginning, what that means is somebody told me, right? Or I watched somebody else, even if I was not really raised with hands-on parents, I watched somebody else formulate a belief or, espouse a dogma or whatever, and I adopted it.
Mhm.
If it wasn't directly told to me, this is what our truth is, this is what we believe, if it wasn't that way, then I formulated it over my interactions with life and other people, accumulating or, accumulating a language to begin with, and then adopting, sometimes just with no adaptation whatsoever, just adopting the beliefs that were part of what the belief system of whoever taught me the language. right? And then usually in a family setting, and then after a while, I leave that family setting and go out and interact with other people. And guess what? They weren't all taught the same stuff that I was taught.
No,
but they've been taught to believe they know what they're talking about, so they're ready to fight if we have a difference of opinion. So
no, I actually had a funny experience. I had read, I think it was from you, actually. I found it, Butterflies Are Free to Fly.
yes.
And I liked that book a lot. But anyway, I started questioning beliefs or noticing them and things. And shortly thereafter, I was in the grocery store with somebody. And I went, I was like, oh, can you grab some eggs? And they grabbed white eggs. And I went, no, grab the brown ones. And they said, why? And I said, oh, those are fresher. And they're like, okay, I didn't know that, and we went on our way. And it was maybe an hour later, I don't know, whenever, at some point later, I thought about this conversation for whatever reason. And I was in the questioning my beliefs place, and where I have been ever since. And I was like, wait a minute, are brown eggs fresher? Like, why do I even think that?
That's a
And
great one.
and I don't know how long later, but I realized there was like this commercial that was going on when I don't know how old, but for a very long time, that was like, brown eggs are local eggs and local eggs are fresh.
There you go. There
That's
you
why
go.
I believe it. And I kind of researched it, not hard, not like I was, so don't hold me to it. But what I did look up and, was that they needed to sell brown eggs. They weren't selling as good. And so they made this commercial. And yeah, and then I told another person something as if I knew it. And I had
Perfect.
no idea what I was talking about.
Well, and when you realize so many of the interactions we have with people in our lives are just like that,
Yeah.
then it becomes easier to understand how things get so convoluted.
A lot of laughing at myself though anyway, so I like to laugh, so it's been
So, from your logic there, all eggs start out as brown, and as they get more stale, they turn white.
I put no logic into it. All right,
That's right.
none. There
That's
was
right.
none. That's when I actually made put the question to myself. It had never been placed there before. Like it just was.
Excellent.
We got white eggs at Easter and brown eggs the rest of the time.
Fabulous. Well, anything else for you before we get back to the reading?
No, I'm good. Thank you though.
All right. Well, thanks for your comments, as always. The next quote is from Krishnamurti, and he's quoted as saying, "To meditate is to transcend time. Time is the distance that thought travels in its achievements. The traveling is always along the old path, covered over with a new coating, new sights, but always the same road, leading nowhere except to pain and sorrow. It is only when the mind transcends time that truth ceases to be an abstraction." Now, a lot of people won't get that unless they do a more deep diving into the Krishnamurti observations here. But if you read more of his discussions with people or some of his other books, he acknowledges, he helps you step into a level of observation in which he would offer that time is only a byproduct of thought. Without thought, there's no time. Now, if you're like most of us, raised to the Western mind, your brain's at least doing one of those expanding and contracting things really fast and maybe feeling like it's stretched to the point of explosion. How could that? It just doesn't make sense. The point is, what you think about time creates your experience of it. We have all kinds of good examples of this in our culture. A watch pot never boils is one example. This is a quote. That simply, if you're sitting there waiting for something to happen, hoping it's going to happen sooner and sooner, what you do with your mind energy makes it feel like time is dragging. Whereas if you're in the middle of doing something you absolutely love so much that you've been distracted by time, hours can pass and seem like moments or minutes. So just here, we're trying to understand that we can't use our conscious logical mind to sort out the problems, the pain, the anger, the fear, the negative emotional states that we're experiencing because of how we're using our conscious logical mind. It's like saying, there's with napalm and to put the fire out. It doesn't work that way, right? This process of thought, the way we use it, has a glitch in it that produces our mental emotional suffering and, as Michael Ryce points out, projects its content into its image of someone else and then tries to convince you that your pain and suffering is being caused by what that person outside of you is doing. And there's a fundamental flaw in our thought process that keeps that. The goal cancellation process in the Reality Management Worksheet is a part of learning to put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now and ask to be shown something else, and then trusting whatever pops up, whatever comes into my awareness. This last quote here is from Vernon Howard. Quotes Vernon Howard as saying, "Change starts with even the dim realization of being betrayed by our own faulty thoughts. Self-renewal occurs spontaneously when habitual thoughts are dropped. Few people realize how little truth they can take, but those who do will become new." Now, this quote from Vernon Howard about how few people realize how little truth they can take reminds me of Michael Ryce and his talk about honoring truth and being in blockage of personal error and all of the permutations that Michael has been through over the years, because he used to call it love of truth or blockage of truth and on and back and forth. But it's just words, and the words only mean the meaning each individual brain has for it when it hears or receives that vibration. So taking a look at this, we just want to understand that Vernon Howard was a great spiritual teacher. Krishnamurti was a great spiritual teacher. The Way of Mastery and the Course of Miracles are great spiritual texts. They all say the same thing. You cannot think your way out of a prison of thoughts. It will not happen. You can't think your way out of a prison of thoughts because there's a flaw in the process. So the more I keep using the process, the more disruption I'm going to get. The farther away, the further from truth I'm going to get. So Guy Finley goes on and says, try an experiment and take a vacation from thinking for just a few minutes. Try it right now. Take a few deep breaths and bring your attention back to this present moment. And be as quiet inwardly as you possibly can. You won't be able to stop your thoughts. And yet with this little exercise, you will be in a different relationship with them. And you can see them from that higher place within you. Just breathe and soften and allow. He writes, you may be surprised at how those worry thoughts, fearful thoughts, angry thoughts, lose some of their power. If only for a moment, and when you see them as they are, instead of seeing the world through them. You may even see yourself in a new way that changes everything for you. And that's part of the deep wisdom that we talk about, Guy Finley talks about when he says, listen, here's a story. And the punchline is, in this kingdom, if you want to see anything accurately, you must first see yourself in whatever you're looking at. That's the wisdom here. That's the understanding of what we're doing with our thoughts. That's the understanding of how our judgments distort our perception, and how our perception and where we're pointing our mind energy creates our experience of life. He goes on and he says, of course, you'll only be able to stay in that new awakened space for a limited time, but as you slip out of this more aware state and back into your usual thinking, you can notice how your anxiety comes back up. You can see how your thinking and your anxiety are related. And this is valuable information. More importantly, now you know there's another level of life that you can be living from. If you see the value in it, you can start to make the necessary effort to spend more and more time in that beautiful world above thought. In that beautiful, I wouldn't call it a world, I'll call it a position. In that beautiful position where you allow yourself to watch your thoughts and just chuckle at them. You know, it's like what I like. For decades, I worked with a lot of parents and teens, and I would say to parents, listen, if you're paying attention, if you want to be a good parent, you'll really pay attention very closely to everything that's going on with your children, especially when they're young. And please, take everything that goes on with your children seriously. Take it seriously, and please don't take any of it personally. So watch your thoughts. See them, be aware of them, chuckle at them, laugh at them, but don't take them so seriously. They're just thoughts. And if they result in a negative emotional state, you have the option in that moment, especially if you've stepped back, you've taken a breath, you're in the observer position, you've got the option in that moment to change your relationship with those thoughts, to change how much of your mind energy you're pouring into those thoughts, and change the experience of the emotional energy in that moment. You can literally shift, which is what we try and do when we do the 7-step reality management worksheet. There's a 4th step where it says, in our groups, in our support group, we make it a little meditation where we say, we don't just say, I choose love, and then it wakes up the love in everyone involved. We have people go into a meditation. We have them put their hand over their heart space and bring up the memory of one of the most loving, safe, happy, joyful memories from the recent or distant past until they literally get a shift in the energy that's rolling in their heart space. Practice the experience of shifting your mind energy to different thoughts and notice the impact it has on your physiology, or what you would call your emotional center. So the invitation in this last segment with Guy Finley is to step into a different relationship with your thoughts. And when you see the value in it, you can start to make the necessary effort to spend more time in what he's calling that beautiful world above thought. The next section he has is titled, Summon the Courage You Need to Set Yourself Free. Guy Finley writes, we all know the feeling of wanting to break out of our skin, to drop all of the self-limiting ideas that hold us captive, and to just be who we really are. And yet when the moment of challenge comes, it seems so much easier to just go down the usual path. I lost my place here as I was letting somebody else in the call. Just when the moment of challenge comes, it seems so much easier to go down the usual path. What would that be? Well, maybe to fawn before an intimidating person, or to maybe follow that old self-harming habit, or to just not do anything to that we think might rock the boat. And just to be clear, we're talking about inner freedom here, such as finally letting go of past hurts or accepting responsibility for our own feelings instead of blaming others for them. We long to drop these inner shackles and act in a way that fosters our own greater freedom, but it isn't easy. It takes courage to be free. Why would that be? Why would it take courage to be free? He writes, it's because our usual ways are so deeply ingrained in our ideas about ourselves that to abandon those usual ways feels like we're abandoning ourselves, abandoning who we are. We don't see our beliefs and behaviors as nothing but habits that we've developed over time. They are not our essential self, and yet they feel as though they are. So, for the man or woman who's begun the one great journey of self-discovery and has started to see that many of their old ideas have no validity and are actually harmful, then there's a possibility of seeing life with new eyes. And with that new seeing comes the understanding that although it takes courage, a new path must and can be undertaken. This is the discovery the great sages throughout time have come to. Their wise words prove universality of the dilemma of wanting and at the same time fearing being free. And they encourage us to take the leap, to risk what might happen in order to reach a new and higher level of ourselves. Some examples include Horace. He quotes him as just saying, "Dare to be wise." And then Seneca, he quotes as saying, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult." Let that one sink in. It's not that because things are difficult, we don't dare to do them. It's because we don't dare to do them or try them that things are so difficult. And then he quotes Rumi as saying, "The way of love is not a subtle argument. The door there is devastation. Birds make great sky circles of their freedom. How do they learn it? They fall, and falling, they're given wings." Reminds me of a quote, Guy Finley. I don't know who he heard it from originally, but one of his favorite quotes of mine was that he said, "We all have wings that only open in midair. So we can stand at the precipice and try to have our wings come out and try to fly off. We can't. But if we're falling, things happen. If we take that step, if we dare to move in the direction of our intention, forces will move to support us." He quotes Sir Walter Scott here as saying, "Without courage, there cannot be truth. And without truth, there can be no other virtue." And then he quotes Tolstoy as saying, "In fearing to make an effort to escape from conditions that are fatal to us, because the future is obscure and unknown, we are like passengers on a sinking ship who crowd into the cabin and refuse to leave it because they have not the courage to enter the boat that would carry them to shore." As we fear to make an effort to escape from conditions that are fatal to us, and we fear them because the future seems unknowable and obscure, then we become like passengers on a sinking ship who crowd into the cabin and refuse to leave it because they're afraid something bad might happen if they went to enter a lifeboat, and the lifeboat is the very thing that would carry them to shore. Guy Finley writes, to become the better people that we want and that we are meant to be, to become freer to act from our own true nature, we must have the courage to go against what our old nature is urging us to do. For example, my old nature might be urging me to hold on to anger and resentment, or it might be urging me to refuse to admit that I was wrong. It may seem difficult at first, but to take that first step, the next one will be easier. With each step forward, your essential self will be more fully revealed. So do you have the courage to be free? Not to just wish for freedom, but to meet every moment, knowing that you have the right and the spiritual might to live without fear, worry, and doubt. If you've ever really tried to shake off what's shaking you in some moment of unwanted change, then you know what you're up against. To cherish and long for the idea of freedom is one thing, but to find the courage it takes to let go of all that's keeping you from being there, well, it seems that's another story altogether. And yet, this freedom can be yours. Of this there's little doubt, provided that you are willing to learn the truth about yourself, the truth about who and what you are not. For instance, you're not that sense of inadequacy that wants you to quit or to give up on your life's dreams. You're not that compulsive feeling that causes you to fawn before others in order to win their favor. You're not any of those dark memories that swarm and sting you with sorrow and regret. The truth is, you are not any of the defeated thoughts and feelings that try to drag you down and that drive you to seek yet another new power, in quotes, power, by which to save yourself yet again. And when you see the truth of these facts, your eyes are open to a holy order of truth. You don't need new powers to find freedom. All such, quote, paths to power, close quotes, lead nowhere. Realizing the spiritual freedom you long for appears by itself once you stop agreeing to see yourself as powerless, especially in the face of punishing thoughts and feelings. Who you really are, your original fearless self, can no more be made a captive of some unwanted situation, whether it's inward or outward, than sunlight can be made to stand in its own shadow. You can't be made captive by some unwanted situation, inward or outward, any more than sunlight can be made to stand in its own shadow. You do have this infinite capacity to choose the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment. That isn't going away. And if you ask to be shown, there's another one of Guy Finley's talks where he says, your creator put you in this situation where whatever you put your attention on, it will teach you about itself. Well, that even works if I turn the focus inside me. Right? It even works if what I think is happening is generating upset in me, but I quit blaming it on the people and things outside of me, and I take that breath and turn it inside of me, and I ask to be shown, what's the hidden part of me that I can't see at the conscious logical level that's creating this upset in this moment? That's me putting my attention on me, and so the parts of me will teach me about themselves. This is what happens if I sit down in a worksheet process, a reality management worksheet process, or I sit down with a targeted journaling that Michael Ryce calls the mind shifter, and I allow myself to respond, and I allow myself to free associate and let these thoughts flow through me, and I write it down, and I ask again to be shown, and I write it down. What happens is revelation. Revelation about what? About me. I get to learn about me. And the more I learn about me, the better equipped I am to make the decisions that only I can make in my life. And there's nothing more practical than knowing at that fundamental level how something works before I start making changes in an effort to improve it or, quote, fix it. So that's all I'm going to read from the book for today. We have 4 or 5 minutes if somebody wants to raise a hand, make a comment, type something in the chat room. I'm not sure anybody's done that yet.
Dr. Tim?
Yes.
Way back in talking today, you talked about time and how we perceive it. It's generally thought that as we get older, time appears to go faster. I wondered how that might fit into all the things you were saying about, certainly, if we're engrossed in creating something, we lose track of time. But there's this universal idea that time goes faster.
Well, and so when you look at it that way, right at the surface, it would seem to add credence to the thought that time is a product of thought. Mm-hmm. Because as I change how I'm thinking about myself and the world and my life, it changes how I experience time. I remember vividly how upset I was that summer disappeared once. Because prior to that, I had the experience in my life that when school was over, it was over for good. And I hated school and I loved playing and summertime and freedom and unstructured playtime. I loved it. And I absolutely abhorred anything that was structured that I didn't want to do, whether it was school or somebody else's games to play or whatever, or, chores around the house. It was like an irritant under my skin. Mm. So I absolutely loved the summer, and it would come and it would last forever. And I still remember, I think it was in 7th grade or 8th grade, and all of a sudden, summer was gone. And it seemed to me like a day or two. Like, what happened? What do you mean we got to start planning going back to school? I still remember it vividly.
What about physical? Like, sometimes I think the reason we think time is going faster as an old person is because if we're not having a thought, our brain cells shut down altogether, and maybe we're losing them. So whatever's left knits itself to the next moment, and meanwhile lots of moments have been lost because brain cells are missing. I know you can't answer that, but
it's kind of a negativistic interpretation.
It certainly is.
Things. Yeah. Things are falling apart and falling off, and oh, who cares? I'm not gonna need that part anymore, and I just limp along.
Just
pretty soon, I'm just ahead, wobbling down the sidewalk. Okay, I get it.
Okay.
Empty of thoughts too, by the way, according to your plan.
Yeah. Well, thanks for entertaining the question.
Yeah, I don't really understand how that happens. I just know it does. Yeah. And so for me, it adds validity to the idea that it's what we think about time that creates our experience of it.
Well,